Hey, what's up everybody? BDL 44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so I haven't talked basketball in a while. Ain't been a whole lot to talk about, but I do have a few things on my mind I'd like to just explore. First of all, Steph Curry. For those of you who haven't heard, he took guard of the Golden State Warriors off of his Instagram bio, and the internet went on a frenzy about that over the last 2 days. I didn't initially make a video on it because I felt like I had already addressed my point of view as a Laker fan on whether or not I would want the Lakers to go all in acquiring him weeks ago. So I didn't think I had anything new to say about that. Still feel the same way. If they have an opportunity to get Steph Curry, it's probably what I would want them to do. And I wouldn't hesitate on paying a hefty price to get him. Even though I'm the guy that doesn't want to mortgage my future, getting Steph Curry is something that I would not ask my franchise to pass up on. So if they can do that, I still support it. But I did think it was kind of interesting that after he took guard of the Golden State Warriors off his bio, it's also been reported that he unfollowed the team and Draymond Green. And if you remember when Klay Thompson did that earlier in the summer, what that alluded to was him leaving the team. So I think there's reason to believe that Steph Curry may have asked for a trade. He may have done that. And if you followed me for over the last several years, we've illustrated how I thought it would be most important that players don't release that information to the press if they do. I think that it's been proven time and time again that when you do that, you remove the leverage from the side of the fence that you're currently on, and ultimately make it much more difficult to facilitate that trade once you let the field and everybody and their grandmother know that you want out and that you are demanding a trade and that you want to go to a specific spot. It just takes away the ability to do that. And we learned a lot from that Kevin Durant thing. So my thought is, if players do demand a trade, you won't know about it if they're actually trying to move for real. So in this situation, I look at that and I say Steph Curry probably learned a great deal. And if he does want out of Golden State, I don't expect it to be a bunch of rose bombs and windhorse reports telling us that the trade has been demanded. I don't think so. I think it'll be something that happens over like a thief in the night to best facilitate the leverage that the side he's on would have. I think that that's been proven, and we've talked about that time and time again on this channel. We watched it go bad with the Kevin Durant trade demand and other players trying to demand trades, and it taking forever to get it done because they just didn't have any leverage. They took the leverage away from the team that they ultimately were still on. So now that we fast forward to where we're at, we've learned a lot from those situations, and I do believe that if there's a decision made in regards to Steph Curry choosing to leave Golden State, this is kind of how it would look, to be honest with you. I think it would look like this. And we would just see a trade pop up randomly at some point. All of the talk with him and LeBron James being linked, how much they enjoyed winning the gold with one another, and you know, just the understanding that the Lakers timeline fits Curry's timeline. You know, reports of what's going on the Golden State side of the fence. They didn't want to move pods and picks to get marketing, and I said as soon as they did that, they basically made it difficult on themselves to keep Steph Curry, because Steph Curry wouldn't have much of a reason to actually want to be there. They don't fit his timeline anymore. It seems like they want to go with a young man's timeline, and I don't love what they've done with their GM. It seems like the ownership has pivoted toward a save money attitude rather than paying into the luxury tax, for which they've done for many years and won championships doing. But they've moved on from Klay Thompson because they didn't want to pay him. They paid Draymond Green, and his value has plummeted since doing so. You know, they lost Jordan Poole for essentially nothing. Chris Paul came in, played for a year, and now ended up signing with the San Antonio Spurs, getting nothing in return to the Golden State Warriors. You got Jonathan Kuminga talking about he wants $223 million at his next contract, for which anybody outside of San Francisco knows damn well he doesn't deserve. It's just a lot of stuff, man. You got the Wiggins contract that looks very undervalued at this point. It's going to be hard to see him play up his value from here. It's just Golden State not looking very good as a whole. I do like Trace Jackson-Davis. I like Moses Moody. I like Pods a lot, but they haven't upgraded around Steph Curry. You bring in Buddy Hield, that's underwhelming. They brought in a few other role players. Kyle Anderson, underwhelming. The team just does not come together to look any good this season. It really doesn't. Steph Curry will be high usage, but he's going to have to be MVP in order for him to even probably make the playoffs in the Western Conference. So if I'm Steph Curry and I'm watching this and I'm looking at what our asset class is and seeing it being diluted by the second, seeing the notion that Kuminga could actually get that contract since the front office loves him so much, I want the hell out of here personally, and I don't want to wait another summer to do it. I'm not going to play a whole season when I'm in my late 30s or mid 30s if I'm Steph Curry, wasting a good prime year in a situation that we know damn well before the season even starts. Can't win. Can't win. They didn't go get Markkanen, which would have helped a lot. They don't have the assets to go get people like KD or you know, Donovan Mitchell or nothing like that. None of that was ever possible. So the best thing for the Golden State Warriors to do is probably just commit to a timeline. And they don't look like they're in a position to do that because, quite honestly, Draymond Green's contract is probably not tradable at this point. Not for anything worth having. So if I'm Steph Curry, I'm the only thing here that before the season starts, without knowing how the team's going to look, it is worth having. And the young players are going to have to prove themselves to be what they are. And if they pay Kuminga what it is I just said, that's a bad contract. That's not going to be good. So Golden State Warriors don't look like they have a whole lot of wiggle room to get better. I would, in normal situations, say that Steph Curry is putting pressure on the Golden State Warriors and Mike Dunleavy to get better, but I don't see how they can. That's why I don't think this is one of those. I don't believe this is a bluff at all. I believe he wants the hell out of there. I think he wants the hell out of there right now. Based on his timeline, his age, how much he may think he has left in the tank for and for how long. He don't have seasons to throw away. And this Lakers situation is real because we, on the other hand, are looking for an opportunity to take what is already a championship core and get it over the top so we can get one more ring out of this thing before LeBron moves on and before we have to renegotiate with Anthony Davis. So bringing a guy like Steph Curry obviously gives us that. And even though the Lakers' asset class is not very good, as it pertains to what the trade package we could send to Golden State for Steph Curry, I don't think it's the best, package out there. If we jumble up everything not named Anthony Davis and LeBron James, it can be a hell of a return for a team like Golden State. And if they maybe move some of that stuff to a third team, maybe they can get back a lot of stuff they like. And I look at the Los Angeles Lakers, I say, I don't want to move on from Dalton Knecht and Austin Reeves, but I would have to probably move on from them two to get this done. Jalen Hood-Schifino, last year's 17th overall pick. The 3 picks that we have, probably unprotected, all 3. Even though I would want to be conservative, I probably wouldn't be trying to get Steph Curry. You'd have to give up everything worth having, man. Anything that would match salaries, however that looks, probably nothing that you would rather move on from, but all the stuff that you'd rather not. It's all worth it for Steph Curry, if you ask me, for an opportunity to bring this core, Bron and AD, Steph Curry, that's probably worth it. Now, the chances of him staying healthy throughout the season, if you don't have a legitimate backup squad behind him, probably ain't great. That's just being honest from a Lakers perspective. If we trade away all that stuff and all we're bringing back is Steph Curry, the chances of Steph Curry, AD, and Bron staying healthy throughout the season is probably not great. But, these are the type of things that you just got to weigh against a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You don't really like building super teams, especially in this apron era. But to bring yourself Steph Curry, all of that is probably worth it. All of it's for the best shooter to ever play, to put him in your uniform and have him potentially retire in your uniform with Bron and AD attached. You think about when LeBron moves on, what can keep AD from wanting to move on? If you have Steph Curry here, it helps a lot, damn lot, if you ask me. And you can move forward with AD and Steph Curry after Bron decides to move on, or it gives you an opportunity to have a very lucrative trade draw for a rebuilding process, which will get you a lot of picks and stuff for AD and Steph if you decide to move on from them. in a rebuilding situation after Bron retires, which, to be honest with you, probably ain't necessary when you consider that Steph Curry and Anthony Davis are pantheon greats who together, without LeBron James, probably could still get you further into the playoffs than what would be necessary to rebuild. You wouldn't have to necessarily rebuild, even though you would have very little to build around them after mortgaging so much for Steph Curry, which is something we think about. But all in all, I've concluded that getting Steph Curry is worth it for me as a Laker fan. If any, there are a few things worth mortgaging my entire future. A few 30-year-olds especially worth it. But when you look at what the objective is for our franchise, to try to make good on the investment that we've already made in getting Anthony Davis 4 million picks and LeBron James having a no-trade clause, bringing yourself a player like Steph Curry makes a lot of sense, to say the least. To say the least. For your timeline, for the investment already made, for the notion that you're gonna have to rebuild at some point, and this is a last hurrah. You know what I mean? You want that last hurrah to look as great as possible. Now, some could say the same thing that I said about AD. You just wait a summer and then sign Steph outright. You know what I mean? Rather than trading anything for him. But you wait a couple years at this stage with both LeBron and AD being at this age, a couple years you may not have. You wait until next summer to do this, it may be too late for one of the three parties, LeBron, AD, or Steph. So it's best, if you're the Lakers, if you're intentional on doing this, if at all possible for you, you want it done now. Now for Golden State, you can wait to the deadline. You can just not do this. You could, you know, call Steph's bluff. You could do a million different things. But I don't think that the Golden State Warriors can simply just send Steph anywhere for the best package. I don't think that well, I mean, I don't think that Steph has a no-trade clause, so technically they probably could do that. But I just don't believe that they would do that to the greatest player they've ever had, which is who he is. And a player who's brought them 4 championships, I don't think that's the greatest message to send to the open free agency pool of the future, that Golden State will simply send you wherever they want to send you after you give them all that Steph Curry gave them. I don't think that's the message that most owners will want to send in regards to themselves. They probably send him where he wants to go to make themselves look as player-friendly as possible, because it's not going to be easy to bring people to Golden State if they turn out to be a not-so-player-friendly franchise. So having things go left with Steph Curry, sending Jordan Poole to the Black Lagoon of Washington after signing him to a big old contract, he gets punched in the face and they send him to the bowels of the earth, and keeping Draymond Green, they've already sent the wrong messages to just about everybody who's watching the Golden State Warriors, which is one of the several reasons why I think Steph Curry's ready to move on. I really do think that. I think it makes all the sense in the world for him to move on. I don't know that the Lakers should be the only team on his list, if I'm being completely honest with you. But if he wants to play with LeBron James that bad, I certainly want him here. Definitely that. But as a player, if I were a guy who had aspirations to just see Steph Curry win, there are more than one place. There's more than one place. So I don't know if he's going to expand that list. As a Laker fan, I hope he only wants to come here. But as a person who wants to see Steph Curry win, I think there's about 4 other places he should probably have on this list as well. So that's my Steph Curry take on things. I think that there are going to be a lot of teams who would bid for him. San Antonio, Houston, two that come to mind immediately. I think you look at a team like the Brooklyn Nets. I'm pretty sure with everything they'd have, they would not hesitate to build another super team. With all the picks that they got from New York, coupled with whatever they have left for themselves, they could probably go get Steph Curry and probably get another person to pair up with him, put him in the Big Apple there. I don't think he should want to do that if they would want to do that. Miami's another team that I'm pretty sure would give up the farm to Steph Curry. But I don't know that that's a really good situation. If they deplete all of what it is, I think they would deplete to bring him in. I don't know that that would work. You think about the Charlotte Hornets, who obviously he has ties to because he's basically from Charlotte. His dad's up there. I know his dad's dreaming of having his son in Charlotte. How much of a party he threw when Seth came up there. So, you know, maybe you trade him for LaMelo Ball or something like that. That would be interesting. I'm not going to lie. I don't know that the Charlotte Hornets should hesitate to do that if that would have came about. So there are other teams, you know, teams that could really use a point guard. I don't know which teams that I think are contenders could actually pull off a trade like that, or if it would be in their best interest. Some of these teams that you would love to see them go to just don't have the package. A team like Minnesota would be a great landing spot, but they don't have the package. You know, you think about, obviously, Boston. Boston couldn't probably do anything like that without giving up one of their mainstay pieces. You know, there's examples. You know, Phoenix with the timeline they have, I don't think they could do it at all. I don't see a path to them being able to pull that off without giving up Devin Booker or Kevin Durant. So, you know what I mean? It's like some of the teams that you would probably want to see him on that are not named the Lakers. I don't actually think they can do it, but maybe a team that's not so good right now could put together a package or two that can land them 2 superstars, and then suddenly a team that's not good turns into a super team overnight. Wouldn't be the first time we've seen that. So, you know, Philadelphia, for example, they couldn't probably do nothing like that without throwing in Tyrese Maxey. I don't see them moving like that. Sacramento, how we have to throw in De'Aaron Fox. I don't see them moving in that direction. So it's a lot of teams that you think could be interesting to put Steph Curry on their squad. Dallas, have him reunite with Clay, but how the hell do you do that? You know what I mean? You're moving on from Kyrie. I don't see that being enough for the Golden State Warriors, even though Kyrie's amazing. I don't see that being what the Warriors would be interested in. So it's like when you start looking at some of the places you think Steph could potentially land other than the Lakers, those spots don't necessarily look that great. They really don't. The places you would likely want to see him go, he probably doesn't have a path to get to. New York's not going to move on from Jalen Brunson, even though they have picks and players they could probably send. It's probably not the greatest thing. We're talking about New Orleans, maybe that could be interesting, but they just landed DeJounte Murray. I'm sure they wouldn't hesitate to move DeJounte to get Steph, but I don't necessarily see that being where Steph would want to go if he's leaving home, which is Golden State. It would be LA, and it would be the Lakers. LeBron's here, and that's a big part of all of this. So, yeah, man, I think Steph could potentially be out, and is unrealistic as it looks like him landing the Lakers would be. I don't think it's all that realistic that he would go really too many other places than the Lakers if he were to leave. And I think him leaving is starting to look more realistic than it ever has. So you put 2 and 2 together, and you could see something really, really strange happen very soon, or somewhere within this season. So, yeah, I give this about a 10% chance of happening. I really don't think nothing's going to happen, unless my theory about him calling for a trade from behind the scenes is true. If he's just trying to put pressure on the Golden State Warriors, I would tell him that's an empty thing. You're not going to get from it what you're hoping to get, is what I would tell him. If you think removing GS Dub from your bio and unfollowing people is going to make them go all in to get somebody, I don't know who that somebody is, and I don't know that what they would define as all in is a good enough package to get what you want. They didn't want to go after Lauri Markkanen. I don't know what opens up better than Lauri Markkanen for the Golden State Warriors. And if they do decide to pay Kuminga, it's curtains. It's over for them. That solidifies them not being good enough to keep Steph Curry around, in my opinion. They must not pay Kuminga that. Not unless they're ready to commit to his timeline. And I ain't seen enough personally from Kuminga to make that anywhere near worth it. Anywhere near worth it. I see, you know, Brandon Ingram is somebody they talk about they don't want to pay that amount of money. I would rather pay Brandon Ingram that money than Jonathan Kuminga. Most definitely. So I just don't think the Golden State Warriors head in the right place. They should have traded what they could have traded to get Lauri Markkanen. I don't think we'd be in this position. I don't think we'd be having this conversation at all. So that's what I got to say about the Warriors. I've given them 20 minutes. There was another topic I also had in mind. Has nothing to do with the Warriors at all. It's actually a young rookie that was just drafted 2nd overall, a guy by the name of Alex Sarr. And Alex Sarr is a power forward center combination defensive player who really had a bad summer league, a very bad summer league. And I watched some content on him. People were illustrating how bad of a summer league he had, and talking about he was the worst summer league player in the history of summer league, which I don't think is true. He really had some horrible performances shooting the ball, but he did have some good sequences where he blocked shots and things like that we were able to see. I just think he was asked to do the wrong things. I think sometimes young players come in overzealous to show what they can do, and they end up attempting things they cannot pull off. In attempts to try to show what they can do, they do the wrong things. And I think that's what it was for Alex Sarr. He came in trying to be Jabari Smith or Kevin Durant or somebody like that who shoots the ball, and that's not his game. His offensive game needs a hell of a lot of work. He's more of a defensive guy. He doesn't rebound as well as you would want him to be for the weaknesses that he has, which is a concern. But his length and his overall passing ability and things like that are nice tools that he can work with that can make him as good as he wants to be. My concern with Alex Sarr early on, which is why I wouldn't have taken him first overall, which is what his consensus initially was that I thought that he might be a little too thin to be banging up against some of the centers in this league without a player next to him that could help him with that. That was my concern. I would feel much more comfortable with Zach Edey or Donovan Clingan based on the size matchups that he's going to be faced with early on, if I'm looking for a center that likely has a stretch four next to him or something like that. I would want him in a situation like Evan Mobley with a center next to him like Allen, or in a situation where he could play next to a Porzingis or play next to an Anthony Davis. That way he can be together with those two what you send at the big center that's ultimately 280 pounds. Because the more of these guys that are coming in, the less likely a guy like Alex Sarr is going to have any success guarding them. And if he's a defensive player who's not going to be able to guard some of the defensive players, some of the offensive players that he's going up against, then you got the makings of a bad situation with the player. And so that's my concern about Alex Sarr. I just look at him as a little too thin, light in the pocket to really be going up against some of these players. And his game is supposed to be defensive. So that's a bad thing all the way around. However, the reason why I want to talk about him is because I think people are a little too low on him at this point. Now I think we're getting to a space where we're ready to say he's a bust just from seeing him in the summer league. You know, they were saying the same thing about Wemby last year. In his first summer league game, he was terrible. He had a very bad summer league game, and then you heard for the next 2 days that he was going to be a bust. And then you fast forward to where we are right now, he's probably the most important asset in basketball. You know what I'm saying? Like, literally. So, you know what I mean? I just think that Alex Sarr is a player where, for me, fantasy basketball-wise, I don't think you should probably be looking to value him in most categories leagues or in all category leagues, because I think his shooting numbers could potentially be terrible. We're looking at a guy who's not bashful about shooting and doesn't make a lot of shots. So you see 2 for 14 nights, like literally. But as far as blocking shots and just overall basketball impact on the defensive end, I think he's going to have an Evan Mobley, Anthony Davis-like career because he has that type of body length and he's good with timing and things like that, which are important for defensive players. He reads defense as well. He's fast laterally like Evan Mobley. He can guard players smaller than him. He's very fast running the floor for his size. One of the best big men runners in the league already. So Alex Sarr has some superhuman stuff. He's good at driving the basketball. And I just think that people are super low on him, expecting him to be very bad at this point. And I think that's underselling a player that just right before the draft everybody thought should be the first overall pick, for which I never agreed with. I never agreed with that. In fact, if you go back and look at my mock draft, I had him being taken 6 to Charlotte. So I would have taken him even further back than Washington. I didn't really love him for the Washington situation for the same reason I already explained. I just don't think Washington has that secondary piece next to him that can help him with bigger players. Now, I got to amend that by saying they did go out and get Jonas Valanciunas, which I think will ultimately be an antidote for that poison. I think this is exactly what he needs. But when he was drafted, I didn't see that piece at the time. But they went and got it, and so I think that Valanciunas will take a lot of pressure off of Alex Sarr early on and maybe show him the ropes. But I think it's a good chance they probably trade Valanciunas very soon as well. Would not be a bad idea for the Washington Wizards to go after a Jared Allen from Cleveland if he becomes available, or somebody like that, Nicholas Claxton if he becomes available. I think that would be a good piece to put next to Alex Sarr for the time being. I really think that's an important thing. But for now, Valanciunas will definitely take care of what it was my biggest concern in regards to him was. So he gets to play a little 4. And I think that's the right position for him for now. I do think that they're going to have to work a lot with this kid, though, in helping properly define him as a offensive player. Whatever offensive game he's going to have to learn how not to be overzealous. You're not Kevin Durant. You're not any of those guys. Take your time. Let the game come to you. Use the pass as a weapon. And let a point guard like Bub Carrington set you up and put you in positions to succeed. Guys like Kyle Kuzma, they're going to be the ones that help him with his offensive game and allowing him to be a guy that ultimately is a receiver of the basketball rather than somebody initiating his own offense. So I think that's important. They're going to have to define him properly, and coaching is going to have to be really, really intentional on helping him through overzealousness. So he doesn't get off to having bad confidence with bad performances like he did in the summer league. So I put him on a lot of fantasy teams. I did. I got him on a couple of categories fantasy leagues. I'll probably regret it. Probably end up waiving him if he's as bad as I think he's going to be in that way. But all those points leagues and stuff like that just summarizes all of your stats and put it into a certain number. I think he's going to ultimately be a very productive basketball player. I think his shot blocking and passing are really his strengths at the moment. And I think when you're talking about the Washington Wizards, the usage is going to be very high for him, given the fact that they are limited in their assets and it's a rebuilding team. I think he's going to have all kinds of minutes, and I think by the end of the season, his stats are going to look very good if he doesn't have a complete terrible season or injury issue riddled season. So while everybody else was saying, "Oh, Alex Sarr is the first overall pick, I'd take him before this, and this," I was saying no. Now everybody's saying Alex Sarr is going to be the biggest bust in the league, and I'm picking him up. When you go high on Sarr, I go low. When you go low on Sarr, I go high. Because at the end of the day, I haven't seen yet a sweet medium that tells the truth about Alex Sarr. Nobody seems to have it right. Either they think he's going to be the best player ever until he shows up in the summer league and plays poorly. Now he's the worst guy in the world. Somewhere in between, man. At the end of the day, this is a 19-year-old guy from France who doesn't particularly shoot the ball very well, who doesn't necessarily rebound the ball very well for his size. So those are two weaknesses that are not great. But his strengths are strong. He does run the floor as well as any big man. And I think when you start talking about going up against guys like Wembanyama and Alperen Sengun and some of these other centers, you're going to need Alex Sarr to develop properly. And if he does, his natural gift's going to put him in position to defend those guys as well as anybody in the league. So that is why I'm high on Alex Sarr for what it is I expect him to be. As long as you allow him to play the 4 and guard people like Evan Mobley, you can put him on guys like Franz Wagner. He should have some success. He should be able to keep up with those people laterally and running the floor. And so I'm excited about the opportunity he will have in this league, so long as he doesn't find himself being asked to guard people that are 300 pounds, quite literally. And so that's pretty much my take on Alex Sarr. I really want to do a conversation about him because I put him on a hell of a lot of basketball fantasy teams this year. And like a good most of them, and I saw him being waived after the summer league, and I picked him up on all those teams he was waived on. You know, I just think people are a little too excited about his downfall after being a little too zealous about his first overall pick status. I never agreed with the consensus either way. And at this point, I'm buying very low on Alex Sarr. So that's pretty much the two topics I wanted to talk about, man. Got to go back down and get my laundry out of the dryer, but I did want to give y'all a basketball video because I have not talked basketball in pretty much a week and a half. As I told you guys, August, it's hard to talk about basketball, but those two things were on my mind. I think Steph Curry should want out of Golden State at this point. I think that Golden State should honor him. He's done enough for them to get the respect to be able to be moved to wherever he wants to go, and I hope that they honor that. And I hope Alex Sarr has a fantastic season, a healthy season, and I hope that the Washington Wizards coaching staff is ready for the challenge of turning this player into and defining him properly, turning him what they need to turn him into, and defining his piece properly. That's important. So that's pretty much what I got to say. My name is BDF44. I thank y'all for watching. Bye.